Welcome to another installment of Taylor Newsbreak. I'm your host, Carl Zymak. Today we're going to discuss Taylor CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team. The program has scheduled its annual training for early next year in January, and it is currently campaigning for new members. With us today, Blaine Honeycutt, the coordinator of CERT, and Steve Portis, our fire chief.
Hi, Carl.
Gentlemen, welcome to the studio. Great to see you guys, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
All right, Blaine, why don't we start with you here? Can you explain CERT to residents who might not know exactly what we're talking about here?
Okay, CERT Community Emergency Response was first put together by LA Fire Department. They have more disasters anywhere. And then after 9/11, President Bush, when he started Homeland Security, he thought there needed to be a program nationwide that people can take care of themselves in a disaster, have some things to do, and so that's how CERT got started. Mm-hmm. And then so now you have CERT teams in every state. I think last count there's over 26,000 CERT teams throughout the U.S. Mm-hmm. And so,
how do these come in handy for you, Steve?
Well, CERT kind of helps out during big storms.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of power lines down and get a lot of calls, and some of them are dangerous. We can't leave the scene. We only have so many apparatus available to go to on run, so it's nice to be able to call them. They can sit on scene, wait for DTE, mm-hmm. freeze up an ambulance or a fire engine to go to an emergency.
Is CERT to fire kind of like auxiliary is to police? Is that or is this a little bit more specialized?
Well, I think that they do a little bit more because there's a national and a county CERT that they kind of group together for certain mm-hmm. things too. So okay. I think they may be a little more unique in what they do.
Now you gave us a pretty good history. I know in LA this started and stuff mm-hmm. like that. As far as Taylor goes, how did this start in Taylor? How far does it go back?
Well, I got started, if you remember back a number of years ago, we lost power for like 3 days.
Okay.
If you remember that. And so at Georgetown Place, where I lived, the board president, the board got together and said, well, we need to go through and check our seniors. Nobody's going anywhere, people at night count. And so I thought, well, there's got to be some kind of program to prepare ourselves better. So I come across CERT, and I read up on it, and then I went to visit a CERT team down in Monroe County. And so we came back, and so we started in our co-op. And then I had talked to Bob, I can't think his last name, was fire chief at that time. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, you think we do that in the city? I said, I'll present to the city council, and they said, yeah, let's do it. And then that's kind of how it got started. Then we just kind of like got into more things than that, like okay. Chief said about down power lines. I mean, we do some training through DTE, and our CERT members, we rather sit on down power lines, mm-hmm. and like the chief was saying, freeze by fire truck in case of a house fire or somebody needs jaws of life or another emergency, things they're trained to do because they're the professionals. Right. And so we're glad to help out.
Now, Steve, how many firefighters, paramedics, staff do you have on board?
Currently, right now, I got 42.
Okay, 42. And how many CERT members do we have?
We have about 20.
Okay.
And it depends. On the weekends, we get more call and stuff. We've trained over 180 people in the CERT program.
Really? Okay.
Some of them stay, some of them did it for their own advantage. Mm. We've had some young people taking the training, and then when they went to college, a lot of your college campuses have CERT at the college. Mm-hmm. They can join, and so they kind of join that and stuff like that. But a lot of people take it just for their own training for them and their family and their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Now, is there an ideal number here that we're shooting for, or is it just more the merrier?
More the merrier.
Okay. All right.
Because people come and people go and stuff like that, and we had a couple members retired to Florida, mm-hmm. and so it's just that, and it is good training, mm-hmm. That you never can tell when you're going to actually need it.
What are some of the examples that you train in? What particular exercises?
Okay, the class is 24 hours.
Okay.
And during that time, it covers about disaster preparation. Mm-hmm. The take care of your family. I mean, you can't volunteer to help other people if you're worried about your wife or children or husband and children. Mm-hmm. So you take care of that, takes care and maybe help your neighbors, because FEMA tells us it's at least 3 days before they get here.
Okay.
And so they tell people they need to be ready to be on your own for the first 3 days, especially if it's a major disaster that involves a lot. And so that's part. The second one is fire suppression. We show people how to use a fire extinguisher. They're not firefighters. We tell people that you shouldn't try to put a fire out no bigger than a waste paper basket.
Okay.
Anything for that, you need to leave it alone, mark it, and where it's at, call the fire department and let them come out, because that's their training and stuff. They have the training on doing that, and there's no reason for a volunteer to get hurt. And the next one is medical. It depends on how many people are hurt in a large scale. You learn triage. You learn how to help people out, like first aid and stuff like that. And then we hold classes throughout the year to give more first aid training. And then you have search and rescue. They learn there's certain buildings you can go into, certain buildings not to go into. They're like light rescue, moderate, and then heavy damage. And so a good example, in '84 they had an earthquake down in Mexico, and so people went in the buildings that collapsed and rescued 800 people, but over 150 of them lost their lives trying to rescue people.
I see.
And so that was because they didn't really have any training. So we tell people about that. If you can't go in, we show them how to shut the power off and the gas before you go into some unit or something. And then the next thing is the philosophy of disaster. You're going to meet people in a disaster, a major disaster, that they just don't understand. You always hear them on TV. I can't believe it happened here. I can't believe this happened here. And so you would, if a gigantic disaster, you're going to have those type of people that just don't understand what's happening. And then the next thing is the CERT organization. Like anything else, is paperwork, and because the fire department, paperwork, people retreat, the Red Cross, they use that to connect families back together. And then the next one is, and then we usually have a response to terrorism. And then when they redid the CERT manual 2 years ago, they now have an active shooting chapter.
Okay.
What to do in an active shooting, whether you're at home, at work, in the mall and stuff, and kind of because people start running. And they don't know, so it kind of gives an idea of what to do in active shooting. And then at the very end, we usually do a disaster drill. And
Now, worst case scenario, you're looking at things like down lines and tornadoes in certain portions of the country, flooding, I guess. Okay, those kind of things.
One thing that they did use when COVID, with the vaccination and the testing, they were key. Filled a lot of spots for we can do that in our at the Taylor Senior Center.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, alrighty. And Blaine, you were mentioning to me before we got on the air, kind of common assignments, like you were at the TSX a lot of times at the Taylor Sports Place.
Yeah, we help out there on the medical stuff, and because 80% of the CERT training is really for disaster. And like I was telling you, well, we meet monthly, but if you're not keeping people active doing something,
Right.
And so we decided, well, we give more training in first aid and stuff, and so we help with like Heritage Days and the World Series and the Sportsplex and other things going on. It just keeps people, get them involved and get them out and doing things and stuff.
Right, right. When was the last time you heavily activated CERT in a...
I think it was during COVID for the vaccinations. I think that was the biggest one. I mean, when we have storms or something like that, but the biggest one was probably the vaccination.
When you're looking at all hands on deck during those pandemics and things like that, I mean, we didn't run into anything like that forever, and then you run into something like that, and it's really important to have active numbers involved.
I mean, we had initially we had a lot of people show up at those vaccination sites.
Oh, yeah.
When we first did it. So
Yeah, no doubt about that.
And when they started giving the shots out, Wayne County Community College asked us to come over there and help them. And then because the military reserve was doing the shots and stuff like that, so and then the city helped out there, and so you never can tell, and so you don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, exactly. You don't, and that's why you're here. That's for sure. Do you ever do people enter the CERT program as a stepping stone to firefighting?
I don't think we ever had anything like
Okay, I was just curious, because I know, again, with auxiliary and police, sometimes that happens, and sometimes it happens in the reverse way, but not so much.
All I can think of, we had one high school that did the CERT program. Was here for a couple of years. Then he got hired on by Tampa, Florida. to their fire department.
Right.
But that guy kind of got his interest.
Right.
And so
right.
he moved down there going to school.
And he was a
decided-
young person.
And he decided to join the fire department. And so that's the one I know of, you know.
Yeah. Do you still run I know on your website, do you guys still run the teen CERT?
Teen CERT, we've been trying to get that going, but it just didn't work out well.
Okay.
Because the closing one of the high schools and stuff like that, there's a lot going on. But there's a Teen CERT,
Right.
which is a good program, and so we kind of talked to the principal and the superintendent, and we may do that. Would be a good. Plus, it would help the older CERT program.
Sure.
Of course, they would kind of join, hopefully join or go out. But there's a lot of colleges that have college CERT.
Right.
People go to college, and it gives them a group they can join and meet some people, and they have same thing we do here at the colleges
Right.
and universities.
Well, with you running an active campaign right now to get more numbers, get more volunteers, get them signed up for your training. For people out there who are watching or listening to this, how do you join CERT?
You go to our website, which is taylorcert.org.
Okay.
And you go down and you find all of our training we have on there, but you find one for basic CERT training. Hit on that. Application pops up, fill that out, hit it, and it comes to my email and stuff like that, and then we give them a call and stuff. Or on the city of Taylor, there's an application there for joining CERT.
Gotcha.
I think it's under the fire department, or
Yeah, it's probably under the fire
yeah,
department and
you
then
can-
under
you
CERT.
can-
Yeah.
you can join that and do it that way.
Pretty easy. All volunteer?
All volunteer.
All volunteer, okay. Is it a big challenge to recruit and keep members of CERT? I mean, you were saying you're in the 20s right now. Of that number, how long has the average person been with you guys?
Well, most of them, on the average 20, been there for the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay, already.
But
okay.
some people come and they take the training and stuff, and either job changes or certain things. And I believe that a lot of those people, we keep like a reserve call list. I really believe that if we had like a major disaster in Taylor and put the call, I think a lot of them may come and volunteer at a time because they've gone through the program.
Right.
They may not be able to come to monthly meetings, but if it affects the city on a large scale, I really think a lot of them that I know would probably show up, and at least they've had some training. You could
Right.
you somewhat use them.
I'm assuming the greatest benefit, other than when you're activated for emergencies, of being on the CERT, in the CERT program, would be the training that you get and the almost common knowledge that you have then, as if something happens in your family, if something happens at an event you're at, if something happens here or there, you might be able to jump in and save somebody or help
And
them.
give direction. A couple of years ago, I got stuck at the hurricane down in New Orleans, the last one. There's like 150 people there. And so I went to the hotel. They weren't really prepared, which I found that kind of funny. And so I had people come to me, what can I do? So I gave them some ideas and things I never thought I'd be talking to people about.
Right.
Certain things to do, prepare yourself, because we're going to be there for 3 days.
Yeah.
They come to us and stuff. It was kind of, I was telling my wife, it's kind of weird that, things that you kind of learned in past, you thought you'd never have to use.
Right.
And so that was kind of interesting. So, certain things, like putting a tourniquet on. I had a friend that was in CERT down in Monroe, and he was up north, a good example, hunting, and his friend fell and cut an artery in his arm and knocked himself out.
Okay.
Well, he was out of cell phone coverage, and their car was like 3 miles away. So he learned, remember in his CERT training, how to put a tourniquet on, how to lay him on his side and leave him, and because he had to go get help. And so he had to walk like 2 miles before he got back in cell phone coverage, and to come back, and the guy made it and stuff like that. But he goes, something he thought he'd never have to do, all of a sudden,
You never know when you're going to have to use these things.
they kicked in,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What's CERT training like? How many? If I signed up for the January courses, what are we looking at? How much of a commitment and?
Okay, well, you go through the course I just read that we train.
Right.
That's like 22 hours, and
Okay.
then some people take the training and they go on there. Then some people join Taylor CERT. And there's other paperwork you want to join CERT,
Okay.
and we meet monthly. And during those monthly meetings, we take a lot of training more detailed training and stuff that we take people into.
Okay.
Plus, at the same time, we kind of review some skills because you know they're going to need them. You know, when I was a number of years as a EMT before I retired, we would do a lot of training, retraining because if you pull up to someone's house and they've called 911, they don't expect you to take out a manual and figure out how to work something. They expect that. So we do a lot of that training just to refresh, because if you don't refresh on things, at times you forget.
Yeah.
And the time you forget is when you're really going to probably need it.
Right. That's a good takeaway from this. That's for certain. We're right around the holidays. We're recording this in early December. Any tips for any one thing that jumps out at you around the holidays that you would suggest that people watch out for?
And the fire department does a great deal. Is trees.
Okay.
Be careful. You got live trees. We've had one for like 40 years, but don't leave lights on or candles or by heat, because a lot of people, during the holidays, a lot of people houses get burned down and people get messed up, or people get cold. And they'll decide to run a generator to keep their electricity. Well, they'll stick it in their basement.
Yeah.
Every year, and when the first cold snap, somebody does that because they don't want somebody to steal their generator, and they end up finding a whole family dead because of carbon dioxide poisoning.
Yeah, exactly.
And generators are dangerous anytime it's storms or anything. You want to keep them outside, but dry trees during Christmas is the worst. You keep it watered if you have a real tree. Candles are very dangerous. I know people like to use them around the holidays, but candles are a real bad thing.
Right.
We're not really fans of candles.
And bottom line is, make sure your smoke detectors work and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always extremely important. I don't think you guys can say that enough, eh?
I know.
It probably gets very, very frustrating for you guys.
Smoke detectors, in our co-op, we provide the smoke detectors, and we change the batteries twice a year. Where they need, even though they're wired direct, you never can tell. That makes sure, because sure as the world, you have a fire and all of a sudden the chief probably tells you, and you go and you see smoke detectors and the batteries are dead, and somebody could have got out if the detectors have been working.
We're going to run, as we exit here, we're going to run a slide on the show, making sure that we have all your contact and your training information. But you want to remind people one last time of how they can get in touch with CERT to sign up for these courses.
Go on their website. It's called TaylorCert.org, and it lists the training. And then we have a medical first responders class in February. All this stuff's listed on there,
right?
And that you can hit, and sign up straight from there. And then once you get that, then we'll make sure you get a book. A CERT book, we have brought one here. It's like this.
Right.
It doesn't cost anything, the whole program. I always tell people it's free, but it's actually not free. It's paid with your taxes. But it's provided by FEMA, and has the whole training and stuff like that. And so,
did you want to show us part of some of your backpack that you brought along? You were you had mentioned that you were going to show us some of the things.
Yeah, once you finish the training, you receive a backpack with some things that you learned it, and those are provided by Wayne County Disaster Preparation. You have a vest here, which is very important to keep you getting run over. It says CERT in the back and stuff like that. And then we have, as it goes on the floor, leave the floor.
That's okay.
Then it provides
a little helmet.
CERT helmet. And I have some goggles, which is good when you're using a fire extinguisher so you don't blow stuff in your eyes. Gloves, a helmet, kind of, so you don't get the thing. We'll see what else we got. There's a flashlight comes with it.
Okay.
And there's duct tape, and there's there, and then there's what they call this tool here. We should get a tool here. Is we show you how to demonstrate how to turn off gas if you're outside. There's a nipple thing you turn if you smell gas and stuff like that, so you don't have an explosion.
And you don't want to go inside
Before
before you turn off the gas. Right?
And we show people how to turn off circuit breakers, and with the safe way. And then usually we get a whistle, and everybody says, "What's the whistle for?" Well, if you got a team in the house of 3, and they come across something, you don't want to key a radio because the radio does create a spark. So if you hear a whistle, that tells the other two people something's up. You need to get out.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
it's for their own safety because you're just a volunteer. I mean, you're not professionally trained like our firefighters and stuff. Here's a volunteer trying to help out and do the best you can. And then we have what they call triage tape. You have to triage a lot of people by red, yellow, green, depends on their severe their injuries, and some things like that we have in there. And
Fantastic. You got a lot of stuff that you hand out. Hey, Steve, are you there looking for people? Are you guys still looking for?
Oh yeah,
firefighters?
always. We're hiring
And if
10 open spots right now, and
Okay.
I got an older department, so they're going to be leaving in the next 5 years. So I'm going to need to hire a lot of candidates.
If somebody out there hears this and they are interested in joining the Taylor Fire Department, what should they do?
You can apply right online also.
Okay.
Go to the City of Taylor, HR job opportunities, and apply for firefighter paramedic.
Okay, alrighty, fantastic. Well, that's good. Well, thanks for coming on. Happy holiday to both you guys. Good luck in your campaign to get more people out there. And Steve will always be looking for you all the time.
All right, Carl.
You're
Anytime.
right next door. So, Blaine, Steve, thank you for joining us on this edition of Taylor News Break. I'm Carl Zymak for Samantha Rickert, Joe Camilleri behind the scenes. Have a good day, and don't forget to join us on another version of Taylor News Break.